Welcome to Chem Time.
Welcome to the YouTube video presentation. We have been continuing the sessions on safety aspects in steel plant, and we are thankful to Mr. Prashant for his extended coverage on various aspects of safety in a steel plant. In the last presentation, his focus was safety measures while working on heights, and today's presentation will be on working with chemicals and safety measures to be taken, part 1.
Next, coming to the chemical safety, the areas, hazards and control measures in chemical, steel and power industries. Let's talk about chemical safety. The key takeaways from this slideshow are understanding the ways that chemicals enter into the body, identifying the hazards that exist, identifying the potential health effects for workers working in such conditions, understanding hazard prevention and control techniques, application of basic principles that would help in reduction of hazards, discuss and analyze strategies to create a safer and a better workplace. For every worker or the engineer working at any site, 4 questions need to be asked to self. What are the hazards? They can be physical, chemical, electrical or biological. Number 2, what are the worst possible things that could go wrong? Number 3, how will I deal with them? Number 4, what are the practices, protective facilities and PPEs necessary to minimize the risk? So let's go deep into the chemical zones and the sectors where you will be learning about all these questions, and you, by the end of the session, you will be capable enough to solve all by yourself. Let's go to chemical hazard identification. How to identify the basic routes of exposure for any chemicals into the body are 3. Number 1, absorption. Number 2, ingestion. And number 3, inhalation. Absorption. Through your skin, they are going into your body. And number 2, ingestion. Through your mouth, they are going inside. And number 3, inhalation. Through your nostrils and your mouth, going to your lungs. So these are the 3 areas from which any chemical can be entered into your body. Next, the severity. For every chemical, the severity levels are depends upon these 5 basic principles. Number 1, time of exposure. The amount of time you have got exposed to that particular chemical. The frequency of the exposure. How much frequently you are getting exposed to that particular kind of chemical. Number 3, the route of exposure. Just like the routes of exposure what we have talked about, absorption, ingestion and inhalation. And number 4, personal immunity. How immune you are for any chemical entry into your body. And number 5, the types of chemicals. So we will be talking about the types of chemicals in our next slides. So this is how a chemical hazard can be identified. But did you know effects of cigarette smoking? It releases around 5,000 different chemicals that leads to damaging the DNA, including parts that protect us from cancer. So it's really important for every single person around to understand cigarette smoking is really dangerous for every single person's health. Let's get to the chemical health effects when they are getting exposed to it. Coming from top, head. One can notice it could cause 2 strokes. Neurological development damage might happen. Mental health can cause danger. Neurodegenerative disorders can be caused because of chemical induction into one's body. Death due to respiratory diseases, disease due to respiratory diseases, lung cancer, pneumonia, respiratory symptoms, inflammation of airways, impaired lung functions, impaired pulmonary growth, death due to cardiorespiratory disorders, diseases due to cardiorespiratory disorders, myocardial infarction, cardiac arrhythmia, cardiac insufficiency, aging of the skin, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, type 1 diabetes, bone metabolism. These are few chemical health effects which are caused due to chemical exposure. And as we talked about the severity, everything is depend upon how well we are getting exposed to any such kind of chemicals. And even for women, it could cause preterm birth, lower weight at birth, reduced fertile growth, delayed fetal growth, lower quality sperm, and preeclampsia, and high blood pressure, endothelial dysfunction, increased blood clotting, systematic inflammation, venal thrombosis. These are quite a number of health effects and chronic health effects which are caused due to the chemical exposure into one's body. Let's talk about types of chemicals and how we can find out which kind of chemicals are present at where. There are 5 basic kinds of chemicals you would find in any industries, and they are flammable, corrosive, reactive, toxic, and irritant. And the solvents which are used, the adhesives which are used, and the fuels which are used in these particular institutions are preferably flammable. Corrosive agents, you can find them as degassers, chemical reactants, and cleaning agents. Reactive agents, reactive chemicals, maybe disinfectants, cleaning agents, chemical synthesis reactions are reactive. Toxic chemicals, which are cleaning fluids, degreasers, disinfectants. And irritants are fillers, castings, even sand. Sand is also an irritant. So these are the chemicals which are being exposed knowingly or unknowingly, but these are being used extensively in all the steel, power, and chemical industries, and these are the health effects which are caused due to them. Now let's go to the protective equipments which are being used and which should be used for not only chemical zones but also at the workplace and the electrical equipments and for the working at height. So number 1, let's start from the head. It should be head. Helmets must be used, and for the foot, the shoes, strong shoes, depends on the area they are working at, and the hand gloves depends on hand gloves, what kind of hand gloves, chemical hand gloves, synthetic hand gloves, rubber hand gloves, leather hand gloves. So depends on the place and area you are working at, the gloves needs to be worn. Number 4, eyes. Eyes are the most prominent part of the entire body, so it needs to be protected once and for all. So whenever you are using chemicals or working at height or using any kind of electrical equipments, so it is really important for you to understand that eyes needs to be protected, so the goggles are mandatory. For example, if you are using at various other areas, then face masks which will be protecting you from head as well as your nose, your eyes, your mouth. So entire face mask is to be used as a protective equipment when you are working at such kind of conditions, when there are highest amount of irritants or toxic chemicals, the fumes. So here nose masks must be used, especially in the recent times. We have got to use a lot of nose masks because of corona. It's a virus. So similarly, wherever you are going and you find it's irresistible, because lungs are the next most important part of your body, so it needs to be protected. For that, the mask, full body suits. At chemical areas, chemical zones especially, there is a kind of spill, trip, falls, and there are reactions, the fumes. So it's important to have a full body suit while using chemicals or while being in chemical zones, and earbuds are used to support the ears from getting any kind of damage at any areas talked about in before.
We are thankful to Mr. Prashant for his discussion on chemical safety part 1 through this YouTube video presentation. His next presentation will be chemical safety part 2.
Request you to like, share, and subscribe my channel.